the final episode of Meri Zindagi Hai 2, wow, what an emotional roller coaster. Seriously, it had everything, heartbreak, desperation, and maybe one of the biggest romantic gestures we have ever seen on screen. So today, let's break down exactly how this huge love story finally hit its dramatic and honestly unforgettable climax.
So the episode kicks off on this incredibly heavy note. For 31 days, Kamyar has been totally alone, just trying to process the wreckage of his life now that Ira's gone. And his monologue, it just sets the entire tone with this one line. You have no idea of the devastation. It's not just sadness, It's this deep, deep feeling of a life completely wasted.
And that feeling of devastation, it leads us right into our first section here, which really dives into the huge emotional gap that's opened up between Kamyar and Ira. At this point, they're practically living in two different realities.
Okay, so this slide just lays it all out perfectly. Look at their mindsets. They're worlds apart. On one side, you've got Kamyar, who's just paralyzed by this poetic regret counting the 31 days since he lost her. But then you look at Ira's perspective. She is all business. She's not thinking about 31 days of his grief. She's thinking about the 4 months that he never even picked up the phone. For her, his silence isn't some romantic tragedy. It's the final proof that his words meant nothing. And you can see how that plays out here. Ira's telling her friend that she's pretty much given up on finding happiness for herself. She feels like every time she tries, it just leads to more pain. So instead, she's decided she'll find her joy by making sure everyone else is happy, which is why she's so convinced that leaving is the only thing she can do. It's so selfless, but also just heartbreaking. And that mindset, well, it builds and builds until it feels like we've truly hit the point of no return. Ira has made up her mind, and now she's taking action.
And you can just feel the finality of it all, step by painful step. First, packing the bags. Done. Then, those absolutely gut-wrenching goodbyes with her family and friends, and finally getting into that car and heading to the airport. I mean, each action is like another nail in the coffin of their relationship. It really feels like, this is it. It's over.
But then, just when you think all hope is lost, we get the catalyst. Kamyar's father confronts him, and he doesn't mess around. He cuts right through all that poetic sadness and just gives him a direct order. Go and stop her. Apologize. Better yourself. It's the kick in the pants he desperately, desperately needed to stop feeling sorry for himself and actually do something.
So that push from his dad sends Kamyar spiraling right into the story's climax, this desperate last-ditch plea at the airport. The whole tone shifts, The tension just goes through the roof.
And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Kamyar is racing against the clock. He knows this is his one and only chance to fix the biggest mistake of his entire life. But seriously, after everything that's happened, can an apology at the airport really be enough? Is there any way he can actually change her mind?
Well, he doesn't just show up with empty promises. He comes prepared. He comes with proof. First, he pulls out the torn-up divorce papers, a huge symbol, right? Then he shows her clean medical reports, proving he's kicked his bad habits. And finally, he gives this raw, honest-to-God apology, admitting that he just can't live without her. And this is his big explanation for all those months of silence. He tells Ira he wasn't just ignoring her, he was fighting his demons so he could finally be the man she deserved. His words say it all. My bad habits left, but you didn't. He wasn't moving on. He was fighting for her this whole time.
But even with this incredibly powerful plea, you can see Ira is still hesitant. And this is where the whole story shifts again. Suddenly, it's not just about Kamyar winning her back. Now, he has to face her father.
And what happens next is just, wow. It's the ultimate act of humility. Kamyar, this man who is defined by his ego and his pride, gets down on his knees in the middle of a packed airport and begs her father to forgive him. He just sheds every last bit of pride and lays it all out there. It's a massive moment of change for his character. His whole plea, everything he's feeling, it all boils down to this one simple, brutally honest statement. It's not an argument, it's not a negotiation, it's just a confession, right from his soul. He has finally admitted that he completely depends on her, not just to Adra herself, but to the man he hurt the most, her father. And that's it. That is the turning point of the entire show. Her father, seeing that Kamyar's remorse is real, that he's actually changed, turns to Ira and gives his blessing. He tells her he's forgiven Kamyar because he finally sees the truth, that for Kamyar, absolutely nothing else in the world matters more than she does. And with that blessing, all that insane tension just breaks. The tone completely shifts to relief to joy. The fight is finally over, and they can actually start a new chapter, together.
But just when you think the emotional ride is over, Kamyar drops one last surprise. That flight? It's not for Ira to leave him behind. It's for their honeymoon. It turns out he booked the entire plane just for the two of them. It's this huge, over-the-top gesture that just screams, new beginning.
And get this, we find out this happy ending wasn't just a lucky break. Kamyar reveals he had a plan the whole time, a literal checklist of everything he had to do to fix his mistakes. From getting clean to kneeling in front of her father, this wasn't just an emotional outburst. It was a step-by-step, calculated plan for redemption.
And that brings us to our final thought. The series ends on this incredibly happy and romantic high note, but it does leave us with this lingering question you see right here. After all that pain, all that distrust, is one grand gesture really enough to heal all those old wounds? And that's what makes their story so powerful. Thanks for joining me for this breakdown.